Welcome to episode 45 of Radio Omnicore. I'm Colleen, your host, and today we are meeting with Mann, a really interesting person to listen to. His well-known claim to fame is that he reads and reviews books every year, and in this episode he gives us the best insights from them and how he sees these ideas manifesting in the future. We talk a lot. We talk a lot about what's changed and what's going to change in the world as a whole, but also specifically in the world of business. I think you're really going to find it invigorating, and let's jump straight into the episode. It's so wonderful to have you back in the studio, Ian. It's our second episode with you and Hilton in his usual spot. So why don't you kick off?
Okay. The only claim to fame I think I have is that many years ago, about 22 years ago, I realized that I was way behind everybody else in terms of my knowledge of business. I come from a completely different background, but the only thing I could do was to outread people. So I got involved in reading and reviewing business books. And over the last close on 22 years now, I've been reviewing on average about 35 books a year. Wow. And I write a review on each one of those books. A couple of years I was reviewing a book every single week, 49 weeks a year. Some years was a little slower than that. But the fact is that it used to be, it's a disease. I think we have to think about our world. I would say that most of the people you speak to are shell-shocked and are hoping that very, very soon we can get back to what it used to be, a world that we understood and that we feel comfortable with. And I think that that's a terrible mistake. The very last thing we want to do is get back to the world we've become used to. And I'd like to explain to you what I mean by that. The world we're living in now is a world which is extraordinarily complex. Now, there's a big difference between complicated and complex. Complicated is where you've got lots of moving parts. I think that my figuring is that human beings spend so much time writing a book. And any decent book is going to take you at least 3 or 4 years to write. Not that you're sitting there in front of your desk writing for 3 or 4 years, but that the background knowledge that you collect and the formation of the ideas and the reformulation of those ideas. I don't believe anybody should inflict on an author the indignity of getting through his book in a week. I think what one should do with books, I was once asked this on the radio show, oddly enough, and they said to me, how many books do you think a person should be reading a year? And my spontaneous response was, no more than 4. No more than 4 books. If you want to read novels, I suppose it doesn't matter a bit. But if you want, I don't think you should read more than 4 business books a year. But I think that you should read them quite carefully. You should take notes. You shouldn't buy them. You should talk to your friends and relatives about them. Talk to colleagues, and get to know and really understand that book. And if it's worth it, if it's not worth it, don't do it. And one of the easiest ways to find out if the book is worth it to you, because those books are good, but they're not worth it to you. What I would suggest you do is look at Fin24 and see if it's been reviewed. And all you do is you look at by in Fin24, when you get there, you look for Mann reviews. There's about 700 books, 300, 400 books on Fin24. Have a look at that. Have a look at the book. I've taken the best ideas out of the books, and that's what I do. I pull best ideas out. It's no more than 1,000, maybe 1,100 words. And if you look at that and say, hey, that sounds interesting, then I would suggest you buy the book, get a pen. You're never going to reread the book, so just get a pen, write all over it, and really learn that as if you're going to have an exam at the end of the quarter. And my figuring is that 4 books a year is a pretty reasonable amount that any human being should do.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're learning new stuff all the time, and you did send us your list for this year, and the one that jumped out to me is Adam Grant. I love his stuff. But
Yes.
Maybe just take us through, how you would go about sharing your best ideas from, the top books you've read this year.
First thing is this. We talk about a VUCA world, we talk about a complex world, but I think we need to understand what that really means. The world used to be very complicated. It's become extraordinarily complicated. I think take a walk through any manufacturing plant, really, especially a high-tech one like a motor car company. You walk through the plant and it is so complicated, but it's not complex because you can understand it. It makes sense. You can tweak it. You can become more efficient. You can do all sorts of things with it because it's all there. That's not complex. That's just complicated. Complex is this. Complex is where you have, if you think of it, just look at it like this. Apple designs their products in California. They get their components from 43 countries across 6 continents, manufacture the parts. These parts are then sent to factories to be assembled. Then they ship their iPhones to warehouses, and then they send them off to retailers. That is complex. If one component in one factory is held up because they all dislike the senior manager and they've gone on strike, that can mess up the entire chain. Complex is where any small part in the system has an outsized impact on the system itself. So if you think of complexity at the international level, you can have a maniac like Donald Trump tweeting in the middle of the night irresponsibly and the share market moves. That's complex. Now, there's no way of getting around complexity. It's just here. We live in an extraordinarily complex world. People, I think, are terrified by AI. My senses calm down. It's fine. Shh. As long as if a robot hasn't taken your job yet, it's unlikely to take it soon. So that's fine. The robots are not coming. You will, of course, get beaten up, but in completely different ways. The ways you're going to get beaten up is when an app could replace you, a tiny app. Let me give you a quick example, and it's the gross example, but I think it's a decent one. A robot is not going to take your job, except what might happen is, can you imagine an aerospace company, and they operate in 14 continents, turn over billions of dollars. A couple of fellas in Silicon Valley got an app that if you apply to the system, it allows you to extend the lifetime of parts slightly. Only reason they do that is because they can tell when it needs to be repaired or needs to be replaced, so it doesn't deteriorate, and so therefore can last longer, which is why they laid off 14,000 people. That's the type of complexity we're coming up, and that's where AI will probably come and punish people when you can be replaced by somebody else, or if you've got silly ideas. If, for example, you continue teaching in the university in the old-fashioned way, you will probably lose your job. You can be the most brilliant professor in the world. If you think people go to university, as most universities think, in order to gain knowledge, that knowledge is available dirt cheap on the internet. No one will ever go to universities to get knowledge that their incredible professors have been able to accumulate for you. That's going to change. So unless you change from a place where you get knowledge to a place where you learn access skills and get the knowledge yourself, it'll be a place that becomes obsolete. So lots of things will happen and our world is going to change. There's another massive, massive danger. We're living in the most asymmetric environment humanity has ever seen. And I want to stress that thing humanity has ever seen. We always lived in asymmetric societies. We lived in societies where half of 1% were outrageously rich by comparison. They had food every day. They never worried about food. They were the kings and queens and they dined. And then everybody else was a peasant and they scrounged around dustbins, whatever the equivalent would be, and to try and find food for their families. So 98% of the population were poverty-stricken. 2% of the population had enough food. A quarter of a percent, if there's 1/4% less, would have gobs of food. Huge asymmetry. Problem is today we're aware of the asymmetry. And the asymmetry that we're aware of is absolutely frightening. And you look at the fact that in developing economies, shareholder value has gone up since 1999. So talk about the last 20 years. Shareholder value has gone up by 18%. However, if you worked in the companies that produced that shareholder value, you were lucky if your wages went up by 8%. And we're very aware of that. So what's happening is the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and there's this huge polarization. What this does is, combined with a whole lot of other things, is that we're becoming very aware of the stuff, and it's making our lives very difficult. The other major danger of the world today is how we're aging. We've got populations that, let's not go terribly far. Let's go to South Africa. We've got ourselves in South Africa, 66, almost 70% of our population is under 35. India's got the problem, obviously, on steroids. And in India, the fact is that they've got 65% of, we've got 66%, India's got 65% of the people under 35. No country in the world can produce millions of jobs that can employ these guys. Now, the most dangerous group of people in any society are out of work under 30-year-olds. They overthrow countries, they throw out politicians, they mess up the place, and they're very, very dangerous. It's what we call NEET, not employed, not in educational training. Those people are in excessively dangerous. Fortunately, we are slightly better than the rest of Africa, but we're still in a terribly dangerous situation. If you look at the other side of the equation, you've got some places like Europe and Japan, where they've got a shrinking population, but a large population over 65. Now, those people who are the large population over 65 is going to need to be supported by the tax revenues, the income generated by the under 35s. So if you've got a lot of old people and a few young people, how do you pay their pensions? So this is going to cause an incredible amount of tension in the societies that we're going to be living in the future. One last thing that we'll just move away from this for a moment. We're also seeing, as a result of both of these factors, the disparity and the coming poverty. Remember, I said we were aware of this stuff. We weren't aware in the past. We're aware of it now. We're having a tsunami of populism and nationalism. So you've got Narendra Modi in India, Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, Viktor Orban. We've got Joko Widodo in Indonesia, Vladimir Putin. Everywhere you look, we've got these populists. And populists are very dangerous because what they do is they get people to close ranks around them. So there's us and there's them. So there's the immigrants, which are harmful and dangerous. Not the facts, of course, say exactly the opposite. But immigrants who are harmful and destructive. You've got tribalism, little dialogue between people. And the fact of the matter is that they're really pushing their own agendas. And as they get stronger and stronger, it's easier for them to push their own agendas. So I think that is a world we do not wish to get back into. But I think that there's some good news. I think the good news is this. If we have a look at probably the most extraordinary experience, we are living in a period now where I don't believe we've ever had the opportunities to do what we're doing now. I'll tell you when the last time we had this opportunity. It was in the middle of the last century. At the end of the last war, and the world was in when we talk about terrible state, it was really in a terrible state. And the reason it was in terrible state was very simply because the major parts of the world were bankrupt. And it was during that bankruptcy that we developed all the Bretton Woods institutions like a World Bank, World Health Organization, all the world stuff. When we were bankrupt. But more importantly, we started developing about that time this idea of the welfare state. Britain and America were welfare states. What a welfare state means in the crudest possible form is that there's cradle to grave security for humans. Every kid can go to high school and could go to university. Every kid can go to see a doctor. Every person who's sick or old can go to a doctor. Now, if you live in the gilded cage in any country, going to school, going to university, and going to a doctor is obvious. But if you're not living in that gilded cage, many people Their wives die in childbirth. Their kids die from malnutrition or from simple diseases that could have been killed. What happened with the welfare state is that Britain and America educated masses of kids. And the beauty of educating masses of kids and getting to read, write, and be able to get jobs is that you can tax them. And because it's very important. And because you can tax them, they start building a nation. And both America and Britain were built because of the welfare system. So how did you pay for a welfare system if the country's bankrupt? Well, even in those situations, there's always people who've got money. And they're the rich guys. And what you do is you bleed the rich. Now, when I say bleed the rich, if you are earning $100 million a year, we're going to take 90% of that. That was the tax rate. 90% of your $100 million, you're going to be paying to the government, who's going to be paying for the welfare state. It has been known, it's known that people who earn $10 million a year are left with $10 million a year of their $100 million that they earn can come out if they budget correctly. And so they deal with the welfare state, which was a creation of a post-war, post-Second World War, was that it builds economies. Then we got Margaret Thatcher and Reagan, and they said, no more welfare states. We've got to get individuals to work for themselves, and they did. And the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. And we're living in an environment now with the pandemic, where for probably the first time in human history, the divide is getting bigger than ever before. The rich are getting richer. Bezos and the other moguls of Silicon Valley are making huge amounts of money. Not in Silicon Valley, that's nasty. Are making huge amounts of money in the pandemic, and the poor are getting poorer. If you think of how much poorer they can possibly get, if you think that every poor South African who may now be out of a job has no savings. The poorest have no savings. He's also supporting 11 people. The danger of the pandemic has got probably less to do with the health deterioration, educational deterioration of the nation than it does anywhere else. But here's you got a bleak enough picture. Let me give you the good news is that we are sitting in the best period in my lifetime where we can have a decent society for all. A decent society for all. And I'll tell you what I mean. We talk now about the universal basic income. Everybody knows that that's nonsense. No society can give every citizen a universal basic income whether he goes to work or he doesn't go to work. And why should you give Jeff Bezos a basic income? He doesn't need it. The reason you give in the system why you would give Bezos a basic income of maybe $3,000 a month is because there are so few Jeff Bezoses. It doesn't matter. It's not worth even going through the trouble of taking him off the list. What you want to ensure is that every single human has a basic income. Will that cause people not to want to work? All the stats say absolutely not. Human beings want to work, want to feel like decent people, and they will all work anyway. They might want more money to be paid, but they'll all work anyway. So there will be a universal basic wage, universal basic income. How do you sell that to people? How can you imagine South Africa, Britain, America buying into the stupid notion of giving everybody an income? We don't have to sell it. It's happening already. We've been doing it for the last 2 years. We've been doling out gobs of money. And why do you do that? Why do you go for a welfare state? Same reason, same game. Give people money, as many people as you possibly can. Give them money. You know what people do with money? Let's talk about somebody who has no financial responsibility. None. You give him 1,000 Rand or $1,000. What does he do with it? He goes out and spends it. Correct? Isn't that wonderful? Because when he spends it, he generates income. If you stop him having the ability to spend, all that happens in an economy is that the 35% of the economy that still have jobs can't survive. Forget the other people, let them die. But they can't survive because there are not enough people who've got jobs who can actually supply what they need. our system works because we supply things in great quantities. If you only have 35% of your economy buying yogurt, it's not worthwhile to manufacture yogurt at the prices we do now. You can't make a profit. So we need lots and lots of people to buy this stuff. And the only thing will happen is that you'll generate beautifully if you see to it that you hand out a wage for all. Now, second part, we're living in an economy where we have things which we haven't seen before. We're living in a society now where people speak about it, and that's brilliant. Do you remember do you remember the phrase "I can't breathe"? Do you remember who said it? I can't breathe.
George Floyd?
That's him, George Floyd. And he was caught on camera. Here's my question. 10 years ago, a guy called Evans was caught on camera with a policeman kneeling on his neck, screaming, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe." There wasn't one protest. No one. 10 years later, there were 500, at least, 500 protests that I've heard of across the United States about this. We're living in a different generation. We're saying enough already. We simply not. We don't want brutality. So we're living in an age where I think that we're on the cusp of something beautiful. It's not going to happen next year. It's going to happen in the next 15 years. What that is we will go back to a welfare state because the nonsense we've got now does not work. We've tried it doesn't work, unfortunately. I think we have to be capitalistic about it, but we've got to see that everyone has enough money to participate, and they do that because we give them money to go and buy stuff. We will not accept the fact that women must be discriminated against. We will not accept the fact that racial groups can be discriminated against, and we won't accept the fact that you can kill kids. My feeling is the pandemic is going to lead us not to what we used to have, thank God, but to something glorious and more beautiful. Okay, so I think that's an important genre of material that's coming out at the moment.
I mean, a lot of stuff that you've said there. And I just wonder, all the changes that you're speaking about, that you're seeing in society, how do you see those changes showing up in the business world? Because you interact with so many different companies. What changes have you seen with the leadership? Are you noticing similar transformation?
I think, yeah, absolutely. But I think that let's just look at the very top. There was a time when if you saw a CEO, you would be sure that you're meeting somebody who really has a lot of answers. And the reason he moved from a supervisor to a junior manager was because he knew all the stuff. And people go to him and say, "Hey, Sally, how do I do this?" And Sally would say, "This is how you do it." And she always had the answers. And because she had always had the answers, she became a senior manager. And eventually, she's running PepsiCo. The fact is that what's happening now is you cannot run companies knowing the answers. The world is so complex that the CEO of a company has got to be the chief question asker. Now, this is very serious. The chief question asker. In a room full of people, the person who comes up and appears to have all the answers is a buffoon, and he doesn't get it. The man who's going to be the most serious leader is the man who asks the best questions. The problem is that nobody is born a good questioner. You have to learn to be a good questioner. And this ability to learn to be a good questioner is not going to, it either happens serendipitously or it happens because you're taught it. But I'd say that the most fundamental skill is if you, either the executives are going to be playing in the executive playground and oblivious of what's happening everywhere around them, or they're going to start focusing on being the best questioners that are available. If you think of Socratic questioning, because when you ask questions put Socrates aside for a moment, when a senior executive asks a question, he's usually checking that you actually know what the answer is, because you should. That's what we're paying you for. That's more debating, because I want to show you that I'm smarter than you. It's that type of thing. I think the questioning that we're talking about now is really Socratic questioning. They said Socrates was the wisest of all men, certainly in Athens. And the reason for that was he asked extraordinarily good questions. Let's just take the black swans idea. The black swan, the black swans, it's this idea that Brits always believed that all swans were white. Why do they believe all swans were white? Very simply, they've never seen a black swan. And we talk about the black swan event. Well, go to Sydney. It happened to me. Go to Sydney, walk in the park in Sydney, and you'll see plenty of black swans. We didn't know that there were black swans until somebody saw them in Sydney. And I was amazed I couldn't see any white swans, but the place I went to, there were masses of black swans in this park. Now, if you were Socratic and you said swans are only in white, Socrates would say, that's interesting. Why is there anything about swans that can't make them black? And you'd say, well, the zoologist said that they don't come out that way. He said, I wonder if he knows whether they cannot come out that way. And just by asking more and more intelligent questions, there were never questions to catch you out. There were questions to penetrate. Is there something genetic? No, it's not genetic. Well, if it's not genetic, why can't it be like that? And I think that this idea of being a really, really good question asker is going to come to a stage where is going to lead us to a stage where we know more and we function so much better. I think that's how the executives are going to change. I think that that's very serious. If we look further down, I think that one of the things that we've evolved. Organizations have evolved. Organizations started out, if you go back hundreds of years, thousands of years, organizations were always, human beings organized themselves like a wolf pack. In a wolf pack, there's the alpha wolf. And the wolf pack is run on one major principle. It's called fear. You never cross the alpha wolf because he'll take you out. You could never afford to leave the pack because then you die of starvation. You have to hunt in a pack. So you didn't mind eating last because you're the youngest or the smallest or whatever it is. But you had to be part of the pack and you always knew who the leader was and you obeyed the wolf. We built societies like that. In fact, we still have societies like that. Every single failed state is run on exactly those principles. You never cross the leader, he'll take you out. You'll eat a lot if you're on the right side of the leader. From Zimbabwe to Asia to South America. That's the principle. Then society evolved somewhat. Wolf packs eat opportunistically. If they see an animal, they'll get it. If they don't see an animal, they walk around hungry. Question is, can we eliminate that serendipity? And we started realizing that we actually can. And we designed societies where people got jobs and they got really good at them. And we were very well organized into different jobs that were required to do it. So as opposed to being able to get something once, we could get it many times. We call it an army. So once I've got my army all sorted out, my archers, and I've got my sword bearers, I can not only have one war, I can repeat the war over and over again for 100 years. And the beauty of that is that it's a repeatable system. And you think of organizations that are run like armies. Going all the way back, at the army, there's a man in charge. He's the chief, the general, and he gives instructions to everybody below them, and they all say, yes, sir. And the Catholic Church was run like that. Schools today are run like that. Many factories are run like that. Many countries are run like that. And there's somebody at the top, he knows, he gives commands, and everybody else obeys. About the time, probably after the Second World War, I think it was, that seems to me to be more or less the point at which things seem to transcend that, was when people start realizing, how does that guy at the top know so much? I understand the church, it's very simple. The Pope talks to God, so that's fine, it's clear. But what about the rest of them? How do they know so much? I once saw a beautiful picture of, it was the boardroom, and had these guys smoking cigars. And the one director was talking there, he says, if the unions want to go on strike, let them go on strike. We'll run the factories. By the way, where are they? And I think that the disconnect has become very serious, and we've got over that in many places. It's no accident that our schools are run like armies, and our railroads were run like armies, because the only people who ever knew how to deal with lots of people at once were soldiers. So we use the soldier model, the army model, into a lot of our society just because we understood the soldier model. People were trained to do that, and we did it. Then we evolved somewhat. And we started using a different model for leadership, and that model was the model of a machine. A good organization is a well-oiled machine. The beauty of well-oiled machines is that in a well-oiled machine, if a part of a machine breaks, you pick up the phone, you phone stores, you say, "Hi, I need the WT32. Or I'm fresh out. Just order one for me and come put it in as soon as you can. There's no problem." We ran our organizations like that. I've got a staff member whose job profile is 3322, and she's either not functioning because she's old or is retiring. And so because of that, I phone up HR and say, "Can you send me another WT23? And she says, "Fresh out, but we can hire you one, we'll get you one." And then she comes, what she does, she takes this new profile and pops it into office, and everything runs smoothly after that. And if you believe that, you probably also believe in the tooth fairy. The fact is that it's much, much, much more complicated than that, and we stopped running our organizations like that. We started realizing we're dealing with people, not with widgets. Besides which, if you can shed jobs if you think that they're parts. We no longer use this part, so you can scrap it. When you realize you're dealing with people, we have to have another model. And the model we came up with was business is like a family. We're like a family. We care about each other. Families don't fire somebody because they're doing poorly. No, you didn't fire your kid when they failed math. We look after each other. So businesses became more humane. We had things like maternity leave. We had things like universal pensions. We had medical aid for people. We really cared as much as we could for all those people. There's still one flaw in the system. I'm still pa, and you're still the kind. And I think that we are now moving towards rapidly, and I'm seeing this in a lot of interesting places, we're moving towards a different model of how organizations are run. And the model is best described with the Greek term a holon. It simply means a hole, but there's different types, a hole like a thing, not a hole in the ground. The difference between a holon and a hole is that a holon is very much like you. You are one person, but this one person has got subparts, like you've got a heart, which is a system in itself. And then there's the biological system within the heart and the cellular systems. So you've got holes on holes on holes on holes to create a person. You can run organizations like that. And then the CEO's job is just to see that the whole thing hangs together, but doesn't run anything. I'm going to give you my favorite example. I was involved in implementing this in the company, where everything was divided into a lot of holons, and every single holon had a CEO. You can't run societies like that. You can't run a business like that. You have to have somebody who pulls things together. So in this particular company, the CEO, Bronwyn, says to the receptionist, who, by the way, she's responsible for the whole reception area, the cleaning, the foods, the stuff like that in the reception. And she says to her that when our guests come, because their thing is they want to embrace guests, when our guests come to our company to visit us, they don't come to buy, it's an investment company. And when they come to visit us, we want you to treat them well. So when they come here, offer them tea, offer them cake, get all looking nice for them. And the receptionist thought about this for about 13 seconds and said, nah. Now, what you would do in a normal organization, most organizations, you would say, do you like your job? Do you like the medical aid system? Do you like the holidays? Tea and coffee and cake when they walk in. Got it? What they did, because Bronwyn really understood how this process works. She's the CEO of reception. So Bronwyn, who's the CEO of the whole company, knows that she defers to the CEO of the section. She has no control. She just has a completely different job, which is the unification of the business. She said to her, okay, all right, you're the CEO here. You make the calls. You know what you're doing. But indulge me. Why not? I thought it was a brilliant idea. She says, no, if somebody comes here and I take their name and I know who they want to see and I offer them a seat, I'll call the person. He'll come down from the 14th floor to reception. By the time he gets here, the person may possibly have a cup of tea in their hand, may. Now he's going to carry their cup of tea up to the 14th floor. That doesn't make any sense. Bronwyn said, why didn't I think of that? And the receptionist said to her, you've never sat in reception, have you? And the thing is that we need to organize, since we are no longer allowed to have child labor, we have to do something very unusual. I only know of one company that does it and does it well. Treat people like adults. Now, if you treat them like adults, very strange things happen. They might well even behave like adults. And the company I'm thinking of that does this so well is Netflix. Netflix is, when I say they're successful, they're not successful. They are outrageously, obscenely successful. If you compare Netflix since they went onto the NASDAQ, and you compare the NASDAQ itself, Netflix has grown extraordinarily, and the NASDAQ limps along at probably 4, 5, 6, or 7, 8% per annum. And one thing about Netflix is they treat everybody like adults. And a couple of things here. One is that they are very serious about candor, and everybody in the company wants candor because they're not a family. They say, please, we're not a happy big family. We're a team. Now, there's a fundamental difference. A team will relegate you to the bench if they possibly can, or sell you if they can find a better striker. The team always wants to be the best team. And if you want to be on the team next season, you better be the best. And you better really, really hope that they don't find somebody better than you. Now, if you say my company is a team, we want top class people, right values, right attitudes, right commitment levels. If you're that guy, we will spoil you. If you've got the right values and the right attitudes, but you're not the best, we'll give you a very, very generous severance pay. And I think that when you run your company like a team, a couple of things happen. Candor becomes not a nice value to have. Candor becomes an absolute business imperative. And becomes a business imperative because I need to be good. Therefore, I need you, please tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me how things can improve. Whatever you do, don't dare hide it from me unless you hate me. When people are candid with each other, they will tell you that you're doing something wrong. There's a lovely book called Radical. In the book, she describes an experience that she had when she was working at Google. She said that she just given her first really serious presentation to senior guys. And she said that as they walked out, her immediate boss, was Sandy, said to her, that was really good. That was really good. She said, thanks, I put a lot of effort into it. She said, but you say I'm a lot. She says, yeah, I know, I say I'm a lot. She says, you mustn't say I'm a lot. She says, no, you say I'm a lot. It's something I do. I say I'm a lot, She says, look, we'll send you to speech training. We'll pay for it. But go to speech training, get rid of the ums. It's not really, that's just me. I just do that. And she said, listen here. When you say I'm a lot, you sound stupid. And you're one of the most intelligent people I know. You've got to sort this out. Now that's candid. But the candid only works. Often people say we need to have hard conversations and you must be good at. No, you mustn't have hard conversations. You must have real conversations. But the only time you can ever say hard things to somebody, like you sound stupid when you say it, is if they know that you care. It's very, very easy to be candid. Any idiot can be candid. It takes time and it takes commitment and it takes self-control to let the other person know that you really care. Because when your partner says to you, you can't go out like that, You're badly dressed. You have to change that. You can't wear that anymore. You know, one thing about them is that they're on your side. That's why they're telling you that. I know you're dressed right. Get undressed and put on something decent. It's all wrong for where you're going to. And you know that on the side, you're more likely to listen to them.
Yeah.
So I think that what they got right in Netflix is that people know that first the cander's for me, and we all need the candor. And I think that this idea of changing the way it's your whole the culture of your place, there's got to be good reasons for it. I wanted to share with you one. I don't know how much time we have. I want to share with you one idea that I found works rather well, and that is we have not enough people are doing this. We have a thing which is it's astonishing, but it's absolutely true. It's called a performance appraisal meeting. A lot of companies do have that. What happens is one adult calls another adult into her office or his office. She sits the person down and says, "Why have you been talking Mrs. Smith's math class?" And you're cringing. You say, "No, I didn't really. You were talking." And here's an adult talking to another adult as if they're a kid. And that is fundamentally humiliating and awful. And I've seen people worry about their performance appraisal system because but I'm a nice, sweet guy. I'm not trying to hurt you. Yes, but the system is hurting me. And the fact that you're calling me into the principal's office reminds me of what happened in grade 3. I think that there's a far more valuable alternative. If we treat people like adults, then our whole approach will be very different. You make it a mandatory in the company that everybody has to agree to have a feedback meeting with all their colleagues and staff. A feedback meeting is very simple. It may last no longer than 20 minutes. Absolutely not, and usually doesn't. Because I know exactly what you can ask me. So if you tell me, can we have a feedback meeting tomorrow? No problems at all, because I know exactly what it is. I can summarize the stuff in no time at all. There are only 4 questions. What do you want me to do more of? What do you want me to do less of? What do you want me to start doing that I haven't done before? What do you want me to stop doing? Now, you're not telling me that. I'm coming to you and I'm saying, Colleen, please, I need only 20 minutes of your time. I need a feedback session. The reason for that is because I work for myself. Nobody works for your company, not at the real level, not when they're really honest. They work for themselves, either because they love the work and they love doing that stuff, or because they need the work, whatever it is. It's me and my family that come first. Nobody wakes up at night wondering whether your company is doing well. They're worrying whether they've got enough money to pay their bills. Now, when you make it mandatory that I have to respond to everybody who asks me for a feedback session, and I only have to answer 4 questions. What exactly would you like me to do more of? What would you prefer I did less of? What do you want me to start doing that I've never done before? What do you want me to stop doing that I have been doing? When you ask me that question, it's no longer an unequal relationship. I'm requesting you to help me out to improve my career. When we start flipping it up like that, then we can start seeing a very, very different culture, more adult culture. And the quality of feedback will be a very, very different level. And I promise you, nobody spends 20 minutes on answering those 4 questions because they know what they are in advance.
Those are very helpful. So, Ian, as we come kind of to the end of our session, I'm wondering, what do leaders need to know about the future in terms of like Omnicore, smaller businesses? What are the things we need to be really mindful of going forward in 2022?
I think that the future isn't what it used to be. No. I think that we've got to change our view of the future and of our strategy. First and foremost, anybody who tells you that I'm going to have a 5-year strategy really wants to have a weekend off. They're not going to do strategy. They're going to hang out with their friends, play golf, watch a game, whatever it is. We can't do that because we don't know the future, and the future is changing faster than we can possibly imagine. There was a time when the half-life of knowledge was almost a decade. It's now coming down to fractions of that. So everything's changing around us. The next thing is this, that we need to think about the future, but the future is not unknowable. I think this is an important point. Future is not unknowable. The only thing, the future is already here. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's just take something that's obvious. We all use supermarkets. I don't know if you haven't seen this, it's really worthwhile looking at. There's a thing called Amazon Go. It's a shop where you walk in. It's like not convenience store, a little bigger, like a small supermarket. As you walk in there, you put your phone on the turnstile with your Amazon card facing upwards, and the turnstile opens, you walk in. Walk into the shop, take whatever you want off the shelves, put it back on the shelves afterwards. If you change your mind, it's fine, and then just walk straight out the door, don't pay. Everything you've done in there is electronically controlled, so that if you took something, you say, oops, this is fattening, put it back, it will, and by the way, it can go into your pockets. It makes no difference where it goes. There's no checkout. Wow. You go in, you go out, that's it. Now, that's happening in a couple of places in the United States, and I think they've got one in Europe as well. That is the future. The future is here already, an absolutely electronic store. We know that there are dark factories. They already exist, where there are no humans. They're dark. They don't need the lights on, because it's all working. We'll have dark storerooms where a machine will come and take the stuff out the storeroom and bring it to the front. Our chemist up the road here, pharmacist up the road. Nobody goes in the back and counts out the tablets. The machine goes, it pulls it off the shelf and brings it to the front. We're going to be living in a society much, much more like that. So the future is here already, but it's not evenly distributed. My suggestion to anybody at all is you need to project 5, maybe depending on your industry, at least 5 years into the future, and say to yourself, what do I expect to happen 5 years in the future? Based on scouring what's going on outside of my immediate environment, in environments elsewhere in the world. And by the way, they don't have to be the first world. With the M-Peso, a payment system where you don't have to have a bank and money can move freely in the society, was developed by Kenyans. Because they don't have banks and because they don't have good connectivity. They tried to reproduce in Europe, they never managed to get going. So there's a lot of stuff coming from all over the world, not only the first world, but the third world as well, the developing world. We need to project ourselves and our industries, our companies, into that world and then say, that's what the world will probably look like. Now, it's not where you can work out, these are 72 steps I need to get there. But with this vision of what that world could look like, you say to yourself, if that's the world, what must I do today to be ready for when that world comes? Which is very, very different from saying, I want to get from here to there. It works out, that's there, and that's coming at me. What do I need to prepare today? So what you'd be worrying about is if that's the world, if the world of retail is going to look like that, what is that going to do for why people will come to my store in the first place? And if my store is not fast-moving consumer goods, but I sell high-end women's fashion, I would have to change the way I treat people and train my staff and organize my store in order for us to be ready for the future. The future is coming quite fast, and it's faster than it used to be. And the best thing we can possibly do is see that we start readying ourselves today, so that as the future as we get closer and closer, it's not a blur anymore. It becomes clearer and clearer, because this is not everybody's future. Mine's not going to be the same as that. Mine's going to be different. So looking at the future coming at me, I can say, if I've prepared myself like this, I'll be ready for what comes. And my particular preparation will be determined by what I see and what my company is.
Right. And of all the books that you've suggested on your list, which is your favorite one, Ian?
Wow. My favorite book of all, the book is called Rest. And it's my favorite book because Ian Golden, firstly, is South African. He was the head of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, the DBSA. I think he then got headhunted by the World Bank or by the IMF, one of those, and he's worked in international finance at that level. And then he's now teaches at Oxford. His book is the book from which the core idea that the world is going to be better. As a result, and it's based on facts, beautiful facts. It's like You remember in the olden days when you were young and naive, you'd read motivational texts, all that silly nonsense. This is like a motivational text for mature, intelligent adults. It gives you a feeling that, and you remember we said anything the mind, the man can conceive and believe in other nonsense. Yeah, this is the real stuff that is based on really hard. I think his access to knowledge is spectacular from his position, obviously, and his ability to synthesize that and come up with a conclusion is so motivating and so positive that the world is not going to get better on their own. But if enough people stand their ground, the beauty is politicians listen. Now, I'll tell you why they listen. Because politicians are afraid of losing their jobs, their cushy jobs. And because of that, they have to listen to people who are talking to them. Because on the day that they forget that they're talking to people, their jobs will eventually go away. So, and somebody who's more popular will come in. So as long as we can build up, we're against violence against women and children. We're against the exploitation of the poor. We're against the idea of buttering up to the rich. As more and more people buy into those ideas, politicians, newspapers will respond to it because newspapers don't tell the truth. They tell you the part of the truth in a way that you want to hear it. That's why you bought the paper. They've done studies of whether papers influence people or people influence papers. It's the other way. People influence papers. And so they'll give you an angle on everything that's going on because they know that sells to people like you. So I think that book is remarkable. We should all read the book and I think and share it.
Thank you so much. Lots to digest, especially the statement, a decent society for all, underlined. I think it was fascinating. Thank you so much, Ian. I really do look forward to connecting with you more next year. And what an amazing job that you have just to be able to learn and read and share that cutting edge information. It must be amazing. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. We really hope you enjoyed the episode. It would help us a lot if you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars if possible, and check out our website, www.omnicore.co.za. You'll find our previous episodes and other blogs and helpful resources. And we look forward to connecting in the next episode.